Robert Biedorniem stood as a candidate for president of Poland earlier this year. But key to his campaign and the reaction it caused was the fact that Biedorniem is an out gay man, which in today's Poland is a political statement on its own. I spoke with him this week on LGBT+ rights in the country and whether the situation for the community might improve in the near future. So, Robert, thank you very much for calling. Obviously, we're very interested and following very closely what's happening in Poland. So let's start with that as a question. In terms of LGBT+ rights in Poland, what is the state of play? Are they going backwards or forwards at the moment?
Well, there weren't any significant improvement in many years, so I can't tell you that we're going backward or forward. You must remember that Poland is one of the few countries only within European Union without legislation protecting LGBTI people in law. So the less changes, legal changes in Polish legislation concerning LGBT people, introducing protection of LGBT people was in the Labor Code in 2003, and since that time nothing has changed in the legislation. We don't have any legislation concerning homophobic and transphobic hate crimes, nothing concerning transgender people.
Where does the issue come from in terms of the homophobia or transphobia? Does it come from the state, the Law and Justice Party, the general people, or perhaps the church? Where does the problem come from?
Well, it comes from different sources. You must remember that there is a lot of stereotypes on LGBTI people in Poland. We are a country without sexual education. Discussing LGBTI issues in the educational sphere or another is very much complicated in Poland, and there was little has been done for many, many years. Also, the previous governments were not willing to change this situation and combat stereotypes and prejudices. So this is the situation which we are now. And of course, Poland is a country with domination of Catholic Church, which is, in Polish case, very homophobic, and it has own issues concerning pedophilia and cases of pedophilia among the priests and clergy. So just to switch probably the debate, the church is very much involved in this witch hunt against LGBTI people, not to be focused on pedophilia in the church. They very much pay attention on LGBTI people, and recently they have issued a statement that they want to cure LGBTI people in their own centers, which they want to create. So I think this is a broad issue of not only of the politics, but close ties between politics and church, and whole the atmosphere in Poland of kind of a taboo.
I was going to ask about that as well, in terms of coming back to the point about the general public, about the people themselves. It's quite a conservative society. You talked about religion there, but I mean, are the people, the general public, themselves homophobic or transphobic, or are they being perhaps brainwashed by what they see on television, from their politicians or from their church?
Both. And the society is changing, so you can see that the approach towards registered partnerships, even gay marriage, is changing, and more people supporting this kind of legislation. And on the other hand, you see the radicalization of society from hate speech to hate crimes is very short way. So when every day in public media, because the huge role play public media, the radio, television, and press supporting the government, so you hear in this media every day that LGBTI people are ideology. The president of the republic dehumanizes LGBTI people and calls them no humans, compares them to the communism flag. Some of them are comparing LGBTI people to Nazis. So if you hear that, then of course you can expect that the next step will be radicalization. That's why in Polish news you can also hear, on the other hand, almost everyday news that people are being beaten up, that there is violence against LGBTI people or LGBTI organizations.
So I guess the question to ask next is, what should be done, and what are you personally doing to change hearts and minds in Poland?
Well, we should all be in solidarity with LGBT people, and when we had the case of Margot, this non-binary activist fighting for LGBT rights, she became very radical for Polish society, but she's fighting for equality, and the radicalization will be also worked from another side. But I think this is just the outcome of this very difficult homophobic and transphobic situation. What is being done by the Polish government and some local authorities is against the EU values, and the EU should be very strict on that.
Is the EU doing enough? Should it do more?
On the next session of the Parliament in 1.5 weeks, there will be presented a report on Poland, and there are some recommendations in the resolution calling for some sanctions against Polish government concerning their approachment toward LGBT people, and there should be also financial ones.
Is there a danger of a backlash in terms of when the EU withdrew the funding of the 6 towns and regions? People I spoke to in Poland said they were worried about the reaction that their friends, colleagues, family members might get from others, again blaming them, LGBT plus people, for the EU decision, and a danger of physical attacks or what have you. Is there a danger of a backlash, do you think?
There is. That's why we should push on European Union, and there is already a mechanism being discussed that this money will be transferred directly to NGOs, civil society, that this money will not be in hands of those not respecting EU values. This is a mechanism of rule of law which should also concern situation of LGBTI people. It has been supported by all political groups, the major political groups. Recently there is a strong message from EPP, SND, Renew and Greens supporting this mechanism of rule of law. And I think there is no other way. If you want to, if you don't want other countries to go the Polish path, and they will be attempts probably to test it if nothing will be done, then and at the end of the day, destruction of the European Union, because this will lead to destruction of the European Union, then we need to react now on what's going on in Poland.
You stood as a candidate to become president of Poland. What was the aim of your campaign? Why did you stand?
Well, I stand because I believe in Poland, which is progressive, which is open and diverse, which gives equal chances to everyone, and social justice is one of the keys in that. So I dream about Poland this way, and I always fight it for this Poland, and I will always fight. It's not easy being openly a gay candidate for president of Poland. In the modern democracy history, there were only 3 of us around the world, so it wasn't easy, especially in a country like Poland. But I think this should be done. People should stand up if they have strength and power to push for change, push for progress, that they should do it. And I admire all the people fighting for equality in Poland.
In terms of looking at the new generation of activists and looking to Margot in particular, what would you say to them in terms of encouraging them to keep going?
We are fully on their side. I admire them, and I see with what she's facing, and she's facing a strong reaction not only from the ruling party and the system, which is punishing her very severely and is violating her rights, but she's also she's also not being understood by the liberals, so-called liberals in Poland, who think this is too much, what she's doing and what she is saying. Even some of the words of Margot are shocking for Polish society. Even we think that she might be crossing the lines. She's fighting for her dignity, and she's fighting for the dignity of many of us. What she's doing deserves our respect and deserves our support and solidarity, because she is putting her in risk, which many people wouldn't do. She is putting on agenda very important topics, and I keep fingers crossed for this generation.
Well, Robert, thank you very much for taking the time to talk to me, and well, good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.